This is a dictatorship.
Regular everyday people are the ones who are being crushed.
The entire party right now has been complicit.
As they've been steamrolling the people, they haven't really had much resistance.
The party doesn't embrace the big tent that it claims to represent, doesn't embrace voices like yours and mine.
We're here right now because Democrats didn't do enough to stop Trump.
Especially if Schumer puts his foot down and fight like every Democrat was telling him to do, even Nancy Pelosi.
The Trump administration has come in and just railroaded us.
I actually have to lobby my own party, my own people, not to vote for this censure, even though they know it's bull crap.
Don't call those folks your fighters because they're not your fighters.
This is a party that eats its own in favor of big money and special interests.
You letting all of these pundits and you letting people that's getting paid, tell you who we should be.
This idea that we don't have leverage is bull crap. What's up?
Hey.
How you doing?
I'm good. Episode 2.
Episode 2. Good to see you. Good to be with you again. It's a crazy world out there, but I'm going to keep smiling no matter what. Because I got to guard my joy. I know you have to guard your joy as well.
Yeah.
So welcome to episode 2. Thank you all for being here. Once again, this is the only place you can go in the universe to hear from me and Cori Bush, sharing our stories, sharing some background, pulling behind the curtain to let you know what's going on in Congress, and just to share our experiences, our perspective, and what we're going to be working on and fighting for going forward.
And we have to, because we were working before that's one thing that I just want to make sure people understand. So Congress didn't give us our voices. Being a member of Congress, that didn't make us. Mm-hmm. So leaving Congress didn't take away our voices. And so the work continues. And so we want to continue to do the work, but that transition, it's tough sometimes. And right now, just thinking about the people who have been disappeared by the Trump regime, people who, I think about the prison in El Salvador and how, there was no due process there. And is it really considered a prison if there is no due process anywhere? And then to even hear the reporting where people are saying, oh, well, these folks will never leave.
The same thing with me. So the brother Garcia, Mr. Garcia, who was sent to the El Salvador prison, no due process. He shouldn't have been sent there.
Should not.
And now not only is the Trump administration not bringing him back, the Trump administration brought in the president of El Salvador to the White House, another dictator, to tell the American people we not bringing him back. Why would I bring back a terrorist? Where did this label terrorist come from? What makes him a terrorist?
Right.
And apparently 60 Minutes did a deep dive into the people that was sent to El Salvador. Mm-hmm. And apparently 75% have no criminal record at all.
No criminal record.
So this is a dictatorship. We have a president who is ignoring the federal courts.
Yes.
Ignoring the Supreme Court 9-0 decision. Bring Mr. Garcia back.
Like you said, this is a dictatorship. This is a tyrannical machine. Yeah. And they're a fascist, and they're okay with it because as they've been steamrolling the people, they haven't really had much resistance. They've had words, and they've had stern talks, and they've had, some viral moments, against them. But when you're talking about the funding freezes, the mass firings at federal agencies, the cuts to Pell Grants and to federal student loans.
Closing the Department of Education.
Closing
attacks on Social Security.
All of that. Attacks on Medicare and Medicaid, regular everyday people are the ones who are being crushed right now. Mm-hmm. And it's this MAGA, machine that's doing it with this oligarchical, I didn't get enough hugs as a kid type situation. I don't know. But it's happening right now in real time. And the thing is, it's happening right now in real time, and we're here right now, Democrats.
Yeah, I want to go right there to the Democratic Party and how the Democratic Party has been complicit in all of this, this is white supremacy.
Oh, absolutely.
What's happening in Gaza is white supremacy. What's happening in the Congo and the Sudan is white supremacy.
Absolutely.
This is Western imperialism, neo-colonialism, oppression and destruction of black and brown people across the globe. That is what this is.
Yes.
And
not new.
And too many of our colleagues in the Democratic Party, the entire party right now, has been complicit because the party has acquiesced to maintaining of the establishment, which is ultimately white supremacy.
Right, an ideology that has to be, that we have to take down. And so when we were doing this work in the Congress, we were oftentimes met with criticism, we were met with attacks. And so we're not just talking about Trump. Let's just talk about what's going on with the Democratic Party. Let's just really get into that today.
So I want to ask you a question about that.
Yeah.
So David Hogg, survivor of the Parkland mass shooting.
Yeah.
Many years ago, seems like forever ago. Still a young man, happens to be one of the vice chairs of the DNC.
DNC, yes.
Has started an initiative where Leaders We Deserve is the name of the initiative, where they are looking to put $20 million into primarying ineffective Democrats.
Right.
So what was your reaction when you first heard about this, saw it? What do you think about it? What are your thoughts?
I was outdone. Like, my jaw dropped. Like, I could not believe it. First, for multiple reasons. One is, it didn't come from the usual suspects, pretty much. We know that, shout out to Justice Democrats, and all of the work that they've done throughout the years, and folks that are like very public with Justice Democrats and such. It didn't come from those folks. It didn't come from you or I.
That's right.
People were probably thinking that was going to be next for us. It came from David Hogg and the folks that he's working with, and he is in the leadership of the DNC. So that's a whole other piece. He is inside this establishment, and he has made the decision that we're going to come for who we deem are ineffective. I was like, there was joy that I had. I let me be clear, there was joy. And not because, I want people coming for our old colleagues necessarily. What I want is for people to be effective in their roles. There comes a point when you know that the fire that you had when you came in the door, if there was one, may not be the same. Other things have happened. There are people who are for moments and there are people who are for other moments. So I am glad that he is making the decision to put $20 million into, even if it just means that some folks will say, you know what, it's time for me to step back and help this other person.
Yeah, I mean, like
David
you,
Hogg.
I was like, whoa, like this was like, it was like an initial shock because how are you vice chair of the DNC, part of the establishment, in the establishment, and you're challenging incumbent Democrats? That those things seem to be counterintuitive and contradict each other. But I think, like us, it's an opportunity to kind of demystify the system and how it works and how it should work and how it could work.
Yes.
Right? So to see him doing that from inside the system, I immediately I was like, whoa. But then I was like, oh, that's pretty dope. That's dope that he's doing it. That's good that he's doing it. And to your point, many of our colleagues, are kind of just there coasting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're kind of just going through the motions, and many of them have been there a very long time, and, with all due respect to them. But at the end of the day, and I spoke to David about this. I spoke to him, and, he has more confidence in me in this part of it. But what he says is, he's actually trying to save the Democratic Party. He's
And
trying
I
to
can see
help,
that.
He's trying to help the Democratic
Yes.
Party, right? And this is a party that has a 27% approval rating.
27%.
27% approval rating right now. So the party is on life support, and it needs new ideas, new voices, new energy to come and save it. And oh, by the way, in my humble opinion, two of those people that was there trying to save it, the party allowed to be attacked and primaried and condemned and ultimately voted out of office.
Pretty much served us up. At the end of the day, that's what happened. And I'll say it. Jamaal and I were served up on a platter to AIPAC. Yes, you can go for, yes, we'll allow you to go for these two. I mean, it's what happened.
So it's really important to just take a step back and just underscore what you just said. When Cori is saying that, this is not her opinion.
No.
This is not hyperbole. Cori, in conversation with leaders in the Democratic Party, they told her, we have to serve you up. I'm paraphrasing the words, but they pretty much said, we're giving you and Jamaal to AIPAC.
Yes. Yes, and you'll be fine. You'll do okay.
These are quote unquote words. Like this is not.
You'll be fine.
Cori's not making this up. Part of my frustration, my daily frustration with being in Congress, even when Democrats had the majority, like when we had the majority in the House, when we had the majority in the Senate and the White House, and of course we had to respond to COVID, American Rescue Plan, all that other stuff. It just always felt like we wasn't really exercising real power.
Oh, absolutely.
When we had the power.
Oh, my goodness.
Right? Like, one example is Build Back Better. We talked about that, that bill not going forward. Another example is the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, right? Like, we came into Congress, I won my primary maybe a week or two after George Floyd was lynched in front of everybody.
Right.
Right? Yours was a month because your primary was a month.
August.
August. And the House did whatever it had to do, worked fast to pass George Floyd in the House. But then it goes to the Senate, and apparently Tim Scott and Cory Booker were supposedly negotiating and working on this for months and months and months and months. But then ultimately the bill dies.
Right.
And even during a time where the country was screaming for police accountability, screaming for police accountability, screaming for justice reform, we have multiple examples of black people being killed on camera by police.
Yes.
Breonna Taylor being murdered, not on camera, but a case of police rushing to the wrong house, just start shooting, and kill another one of our sisters. Even with all that going on, Democrats in Congress couldn't exercise the power to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act.
When we first got to Congress, I went and asked to become a part of that small group of that bicameral group that was working on George Floyd Justice and Policing Act to get it done. I said, I'm the only person from that movement that was also from the Ferguson uprising, that I'm the only protester of that type here in the U.S. Congress. This is who I am. This is my work. This is what I've done. Nobody here that you all are working with has that type of experience and that real lived experience. I also helped to found an organization that worked directly with people who lost their family members to police violence and to help push their stories. And so I said, I should be on this. I should be on this with this group, and I was told no. And when I asked why no? Is it because I'm a freshman? Is it because no? Well, we just have issues. We just have some issues. We'll talk to you when we have something that we think that where you'll be valuable. I bring that up though, and I know you're going to go to Chuck Schumer, but I just want to say this, and then we'll put a pin here. Is that was another one of those missed opportunities, and we'll get to it, where you put your players in position where they can best be useful. But I'm gonna put a pin there.
That's the problem, right? So you and I had very high profile national races in 2020 when we came in.
Yes.
So we came in with a lot of national support. We came in with a lot of momentum. And what the party should have done, in my opinion, is embrace your voice, your energy, your passion, your experiences, and use it to strengthen the party, to strengthen the bill, and to help that bill get across the finish line.
Right.
But the party continued to not do that. They continued to try to marginalize us.
Yes.
When I first came in, different type of story, but Republicans were beginning to mount a very aggressive attack against education. My whole life, I was an educator before coming to Congress. Teacher, counselor, middle school principal, 20 years in public schools. When we first came in, their attack was against critical race theory.
Yes.
Everything, going hard after critical race theory. We got to teach real American history. Banning books was big when we first got it. They were banning books all up and down the country. Leadership told me, Democratic leadership told me and others, stand down, do not talk about that issue.
Wait a minute. You didn't
I never told you this.
What?
We wanted to be very aggressive in fighting back and pushing back on this issue. Leadership told us to stand down because education is a local issue, not a federal issue.
Shut your mouth.
And this was 2020. Fast forward to 2021. Was it 21? 21. And there's a huge gubernatorial race in Virginia. Youngkin versus McAuliffe, right? Education was at the top of the agenda, the number one issue. That's what the Republican ran on, okay?
Right.
So Youngkin is pushing the far-right education agenda in Virginia during this race. You know, looking to empower parents to take back education from, you know, and fight back against the CRT push and, you know, the books in our schools and all that.
Yes.
And McAuliffe and Democrats had no response. They were pretty much silent. And then McAuliffe made the huge mistake of saying, and I'm paraphrasing here,
Okay.
you know, parent voice in education is not as important we're making it out to be. He said something like that.
Wow.
Once he said that, it was a wrap. It was over. The state galvanized against him, and the Republican won that race. And the next day in the New York Times editorial, wrote editorial piece blaming progressives for a loss in that race.
Yeah, I remember that.
And this is what continues to happen, right? So the party doesn't embrace the big tent that it claims to represent, doesn't embrace voices like yours and mine. It hurts itself in the process.
Right.
And then when the party loses, they try to blame progressives. When Kamala Harris lost, they try to blame progressives.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And just going back real quick to that George Floyd bill and it dying in the Senate, you know, just fast forward to what happened a month or so ago with Senator Schumer acquiescing and caving to the Republican spending bill and not fighting for a third option. Like, they lead the country to believe that everything's a binary. It's this horrible bill or shut down.
Right.
Like, wait a minute. There's a million ways this thing can go. Especially if Schumer puts his foot down and fight, like every Democrat was telling him to do, even Nancy Pelosi.
Yes, Nancy Pelosi said.
This idea that's shared by some Democrats, this idea of, like when Trump was first elected, this idea that we'll get through this.
Yeah.
The problem is the majority of Americans don't got time or the luxury to figure out how to get through this.
Right.
The majority of Americans, the working class people, they're figuring out how to keep a roof over their head, how to pay their utilities, how to get their kids to and from childcare and afford it, how to afford transportation.
Yes.
How to keep their sanity in all of this. That's what the majority of Americans are feeling.
Yeah.
So this idea of we'll get through this is untenable and unacceptable for the majority of the American people. To hear that coming from the Democratic Party, that idea, that language, like there's so much comfort and privilege in that statement. Like, we'll get through this.
Mm-hmm. Who is we?
And that's why. Who's we? Who are you talking about, right? And so when we talk about the Republican spending bill and Chuck Schumer's positioning and reasoning as it relates to that bill, I remember he was on Chris Hayes.
Okay.
And he was talking about how he mentioned something like, well, if you think we're in a constitutional crisis, then you might think different. And Chris Hayes was like, we are.
Woo.
We are. Like, this was even before Trump defied the court, the Supreme Court. He had defied other things before. But Chris Hayes almost jumped out of his skin and was like, Senator, we are. We are already there. We need wartime generals right now. Not no, bipartisan decorum. We'll get through this kind of thing. No. Mm-hmm. If we don't get it, shut it down. Shut it down. And it wouldn't have been on Democrats. It would have been on them.
It's right.
They came to you with a bullshit bill.
Right. That a bill that was going to hurt people, that was going to that was stripping away resources from people who needed the most. And then was going to prop up and give these tax breaks.
It was going to clear the way for oligarchy to completely take over even more. Listen. That was the situation.
Yes.
And Schumer behaved as if, well, we'll just get through this. You gonna be okay. Your donors are gonna be okay. The special interests that support you might be okay.
Your family is
gonna be okay. But the average working class American is not gonna be okay. And even worse, you're showing a lack of fight.
Yes.
And a lack of vision. And a lack of perspective on what the hell is happening. Your job as a leader is to give people hope and vision and to show fight towards that hope and vision.
Right.
You ain't do none of that.
Yeah.
Even though Speaker Pelosi told you to. And I keep going back to Pelosi because, we don't agree with Pelosi on a lot of policies and where her money comes from and all of that.
Right.
But the Pelosi I know is a fighter.
She is a fighter.
She's a fighter at the least. Mm-hmm. 4'10", 4-inch heels, 80 years old.
Yeah.
Still fighting.
She is going
Telling Chuck to fight.
And I think about, like, we're here right now because Democrats didn't do enough to stop Trump. We're here right now because, first of all, we didn't believe it in 2015. We didn't believe, no, it can't happen, blah, blah, blah. There's no way he'll win, and then when he won, then it's like, oh, we're all fumbling trying to, okay, well, we'll get through these 4 years, but it won't happen again. And he is still the president of the United States. People were saying like, it won't happen because of all of these things and all of the, but it did happen. But were we prepared? They were preparing for Project 2025. They've been preparing for that for years. They dropped it on us. And no, I'm not. That's not what I'm doing. But he really was. And then as soon as the Trump administration has come in and just railroaded us, like I've said before, but the Democrats just allowed it. And I'll say this, over and over again during our time in Congress, we saw how as Democrats, we just acquiesce, to the Republicans, and one way they really, really surprised me, and I'll say that hurt me. Some of the other issues, like dealing with like bills not getting passed or whatever, were tough, and we can talk about those things. But when you and Rashida Tlaib were censured, being censured by your own colleagues. How often are Republicans censured by their own, you know.
Yeah, we got to check the stats, but I would say never.
At least not while we were there.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Republicans remain lockstep, ride or die, in support of whatever and whoever. They don't care about public backlash. They don't care about the media. They don't care about perception. They ride with their people.
Yeah.
Like Republicans in the House was riding with Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz was nominated as Attorney General. And it wasn't until that nomination that the dirt on him
really started
being like a sex trafficker of underage girls was about to come out, which forced him to withdraw his name from the running of being Attorney General. Trump nominated this dude, accused and investigated for sex trafficking underage girls, to be Attorney General. And the Republicans in the House stood by this dude. On the other hand, when I was censured, when that vote came up, all of a sudden out of nowhere, my chief of staff starts hitting me up. It was like, you need to call this Democrat, you need to call this person, because they may vote to censure you. I'm like, are you serious? Like, I actually have to lobby my own party, my own people, not to vote for this censure, even though they know it's bull crap?
Unbelievable.
And Democrats actually voted to censure me, actually voted to censor Rashida.
Yes.
Our own party.
And
this is what I'm saying. This is a party that eats its own in favor of big money and special interests.
Right.
And that's the number one takeaway from this past race that we had and what happened in the presidential. It made me realize even more so, and we knew it before, but it made me realize that the party is controlled by special interests.
Yes, the party is controlled by special. It was confirmed.
It was confirmed. Like, you're not speaking for yourself here. There's no way you're speaking for yourself. Like, you're speaking in the way that the special interests want you to speak.
Yes.
And that's why, like, Bernie Sanders, for example, is depicted as this crazy person in a lot of establishment circles because he fights for things like, Medicare for all and affordable housing and things that regular people want. And need. And we still haven't passed none of these bills.
Right. Still haven't passed them.
So yeah, it's crazy, man. So now, of course the Republicans supporting a dictatorship, oligarchy, a tyrannical government.
This tyrannical government, yes.
Democrats haven't done enough to stop it from happening, and I would argue aren't doing enough right now to fight back, right? There's some fight out there, we see it, right?
Yeah.
But not nearly enough. And so to me, the whole establishment needs to be destroyed and rebuilt.
There are people in the Congress who have, great skills, who are talented in different ways. Why not use them to their talents? You have people who are great communicators. Let those people be the communicators. Let those people be the ones delivering the message, delivering whatever the message is. Have those folks on television, have them out giving speeches, do all of that. Have them do that. But don't call those folks your fighters, because they're not your fighters. There are people who are the fighters, who will do that stand up direct action. There are those folks. Put those folks in to do that, to work that strategy. You have your attorneys in Congress, some of them constitutional law. Have those folks working this. Shout out to Jamie Raskin.
Yeah, we gotta give Jamie some love.
You gotta give Jamie love.
Jamie, yes.
I love Jamie Raskin. And put those people in those positions.
And that's the thing with people like Chuck, Senator Schumer, people like Gavin Newsom. They just occupy this space where Like Gavin Newsom on this podcast.
Yeah, let's talk about this
Charlie
podcast.
Kirk on this podcast.
And so the question is, what is the message there? What was the message to the country?
But see, Gavin again, the people like him, people think like him and have this level of privilege, right? Gavin Newsom is thinking, I'm gonna run for president.
Mm-hmm. Right.
There's going to be people on the right and independents who see that I'm reasonable enough to have a conversation with Charlie Kirk, so they'll support me for president. That's how Gavin Newsom got to be thinking about it, because then the next week he has Steve Bannon on. Same Steve Bannon who has been pushing authoritarianism,
yes,
has been pushing flood the zone, which is happening right now, crushing the American people,
yes,
and pushing a third Trump presidency. You have him on your podcast,
have him on
Gavin
the podcast, and there has been so much talk about. Remember, after the November election, all of this talk like, oh, things would have been different. Had Kamala Harris done the Joe Rogan show,
mm-hmm.
and like we Democrats need to be more on Fox News and and here and there. All of these right wing. Networks and, podcasts, and we have seen the numbers that have shown that there's these right-wing podcasts did very well, especially, over the last year. I look at that. I can see you having somebody that's a Republican on your show. Okay.
Yes.
Yes,
correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But if you're running for president and you're supposed to be the front runner, or, I don't know if that's what Gavin Newsom would be if he ran, but if it came down to it, that would be the thing I would look at, and that would be the thing I would be telling the Black community, hey. This is not the person that we need to be looking to. I think that we are doing ourselves a disservice as the Democratic Party, always letting other people tell us how we should be. Right. You letting all of these pundits and you letting people that's getting paid, tell you who we should be instead of looking at our core values. The people in our districts, the people in our communities, in our states, in our towns, the people that we claim to be all about human rights, all about civil rights, all about, fixing, the disparities and all, like, this is who we're supposed to be. So why aren't we that first? And why aren't we that enough to where, so much so to where change happens? No, Bernie Sanders is not wrong for pushing the Medicare for all. We should have been had Medicare for all. Yes, we need a Green New Deal for public schools and for cities. We need all of that. That's the change that we need, and we should be fighting for those things. The people want this.
This idea that we don't have leverage is bullcrap.
Right.
Period. And let me tell you why it's bullcrap. First of all, every American with a voice, if you got something to say, you need to be saying it.
Right.
You need to be using it in whatever capacity you have.
Right.
But when we talk about elected members of Congress, the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate, you have a platform. You have a voice.
Yes.
If you don't have leverage, you create leverage.
You create it.
You create leverage, right? And so what you were just saying made me think about how, Trump nominated Peter Hegseth for, Secretary of Defense, Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, and other people for other things. Trump's nominees, like Marco Rubio and others, got Democratic votes.
Yes, they did.
To be confirmed.
Yes, they did.
Right? So, no leverage. You go out there on the media every single day and you tell the American people, absolutely not. I am not voting for any of his nominees because I do not support dictatorship.
I do not support
oligarchy. I have no idea what Elon Musk and Doge are doing with our data, in our offices, closing our offices. The minute they shut down an office, you're supposed to grind the Senate to a halt. Whatever they need our cooperation for, we ain't cooperating on nothing. That's leverage.
That is leverage.
Leverage is when president says, I'm going to let the eviction moratorium run out, and then it'll allow realtors and landlords to evict people. And Cori Bush says, no. What the hell's going on? What's happening? We we got to go back to the House floor to stop this. Run to the House floor.
Literally ran to the House floor.
Mr. Vote, we can't stop it. Well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? I'm going to just stay here. I'm just not going home.
Period.
I'm going to occupy the steps of the Capitol. And we going to figure it out.
We'll figure it out as we go.
And then the country responds.
Right.
And then the president responds. And the president had to put a halt on that moratorium. But even if a week later, a couple days later, it runs out, the point is, when you give people an extra day in their homes, I've come home to eviction notices.
So have I. Yes.
You slept in your car.
Yeah.
When you give people an extra day in their home, extra 2 days, you give them extra time. Every second counts.
Yes.
You give them extra minutes to figure out what the hell they're going to do.
Right. Right.
You literally save lives. Every minute counts. And so the American people don't want to hear we don't got leverage or what we going to do.
But to say that there is no leverage, the only way that there is nothing is when you don't do the thing.
Yeah.
You know, that's the only way there is no leverage.
When you stop trying.
When you stop trying.
Yeah.
So that's where we have to go again, outside of the normal box, get out of that status quo and start looking to see who is great at what. There are other people, you know, again, we go back to every time it's time for another committee or a group or something in Congress, it's the same people always getting put on everything. And it's like, you know, why?
Yeah.
You know, there are so many other people. So even in that, there is leverage. There are people that can do different things. There is always something. I have had calls saying, Cori, what do we do? But you know, there needs to be there needs to be a strategy.
Coordination.
You know, but you don't think Trump's machine is coordinated? They're coordinated, even though Elon Musk said, yeah, we make mistakes and we're going to make mistakes. You know, we'll fix it later, but, you know, I have to paraphrase him. Yeah. But that's what they're doing. And Democrats are like, you just, you know, we just got to follow the rules and follow the order. Don't get outside of this box. Break the freaking box. There shouldn't be a box. No, let the people live. Let the people live, because what's happening now is people are being harmed.
I mean, the majority of American people don't vote in primaries.
Yeah.
Tens of millions, like 60, 70, 80 million, some wild number, stay home during the last presidential and consistently stay home. Yeah. Don't vote in the presidential general. And so those are the American people we need to be talking to. Yeah, yeah. Those are the American people we need to be pulling out.
As we look to how we move forward, and all of these organizations and people, I'm going back to these organizations again, because there have been protests across the country. There's been mutual aid. There are people who are organizing. There are coalitions. So we know it's the people who have the real power. I think we should talk about that.
It's time for the people to get organized.
We got to get
the people to build power for real.
We got to get organized. And so I just want to say thank you to all of the folks that are out, you know, whether you're knocking doors in your communities, you know, whether you're registering people to vote, whether you are talking about issues, whether you're bringing resources to people, all of the orgs, if you're out, you know, protesting against the Trump, you know, regime, all of the things. And I want to especially appreciate I'm speaking for Jamaal Bowman too. I want to especially appreciate all of the organizations that are out. And when you protest, you also protest to save lives in Gaza. You also are standing for Palestinian liberation. Also, you're also speaking up against the genocide. It's not just about protesting, you know, what Trump is doing to people in this country, as long as we don't speak about Palestine, as long as we don't talk about Gaza. You know, people are speaking up for Haiti. People are speaking up for Congo. People are speaking up for, you know, just across the world. That's what we need right now. So that's the energy. I want to say thank you.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's the other thing too, right? There's so much happening behind the scenes, and that's what fighting is, right? Like if you're a lawyer for Mahmoud Khalil, you're fighting.
Yes.
Right? You're fighting for him, but you're fighting for what this country is supposed to be about. And thank you for making the point you just made. If you're fighting for American democracy, you have to fight for democracy everywhere.
Everywhere.
You can't support apartheid in one country,
right,
but American democracy here. That's not how that works. And there's a lot of people and a lot of organizations who are completely silent on apartheid in Israel and fighting for American democracy here. White supremacy is white supremacy. Western imperialism is Western imperialism, right? And because U.S. tax dollars go to support apartheid and repression and oppression in other countries, and again, not just in Gaza, but other places, we are supposed to be fighting for all of it.
We are.
And so, yes, shout out to, the organizers of the Hands Off rally. Shout out to some of the people we're working with. They're going to be doing a tour. Black leaders across the country, the State of the People tour.
State of the People tour is about to start.
Shout out to them. So there's a lot of people working, a lot of people fighting. So find out what's happening out there. Get plugged in. Make your calls, write your letters, send your emails, continue to elevate your voice. But conversations in your living room with people, doesn't have to be 50 people, doesn't have to be 20 people, it could be 5 people, 10 people. That's powerful, and that's our humanity coming together. Law firms have to come together and push back.
The attacks on law firms.
Yeah, the attacks on law firms. K through 12 systems of education have to come together and push back. Healthcare has to come together and push back. So this what needs to happen. The people and everything that's representative of the people have to come together and push back. Because in silos, we could be picked off one by one.
Right.
And that's what Musk and Peter Thiel and Trump and that whole crew, that's what they're counting on.
Yes.
They're counting on us being siloed. Can't wait on the Democratic Party, elected leaders, blah, blah, blah.
2026.
We can't.
It
got to be right now.
It has to be now because so much is already happening. But a lot of communities have a Elon Musk type. A lot of states have someone, I won't say a lot, but there are places where there is an Elon Musk type that's trying to do the same thing in cities. Big money, big developers, big, whatever it is, somebody big who is trying to pretty much buy the elected officials, who's trying to come in and just cause destruction on the regular everyday people in those communities for their own benefit. There is this it seems like it's a coordinated attack against mayors across the country, especially black mayors across the country.
The brother in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, they're probably going to come for Brandon Johnson when it's his, when his term is up. And so this is not just about what happens on the federal level. Like what the Republicans have been able to do is they've been working on the federal level, the state level, and the municipal level. They've been working in so many of these rooms in on school boards and just everywhere. We can't work in these silos because also they are working on a very local level as well. And so we got to be the regular folks in these communities. We got to put our mouths, our voices out. They're a
well-oiled machine.
They are, and it's going to impact every single one of us in some way. Absolutely, it already is.
All right, y'all. That's a wrap. I'm Jamaal Bowman.
I'm Cori Bush.
And this is Bowman and Bush, y'all. Check out the next episode coming very, very, very soon.
Did you like this video? Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel and turn on notifications. For exclusive content and to support our independent, unfiltered journalism, head over to zeteo.com. Your support matters.